We are live, ladies and gents. WeatherBrains episode number 4. No, not 4. 511. Oh boy, for November 2nd.
You're having deja vu all over again, huh?
Yeah, and we got all kind of issues. So that they've changed the Hangout format. Bill's got bad audio. Brian's video is frozen.
My video's frozen?
Well, it's okay now. We have bad connectivity here in the building, so I'm having to use a MiFi. This is our bandwidth for tonight. So who knows what's going to happen with this show. Goodness. But
and
we'll make it.
It's almost 8:30. Do you know where your weather forecast is for the webpage? It's still Charles from late morning.
Oh, I have no control over that. Don't have time to look at it. I worry about the blog and the things we control. So no, this will be an interesting show. So I'm on a MiFi. What else can go wrong here? We'll find
don't ask. Don't ask. Well, what's gone right is that we've gone a good. Let's see, we've gone a good 28 hours with nobody canceling their subscription after the latest newsletter went out.
That does it. I'm canceling right now.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So let's see. And Bill, every week his audio goes bad. I have no idea what's up with that. And Bill had some big globe behind him. It looked like maybe he's going to the NPR studios. Good evening. Welcome to National Public Radio.
Yeah, I dislike that tropical cyclone on the other side of the world.
You dislike it?
Yeah, it's been giving me fits all weekend. I've been getting questions about it, and I have to test my geography of that part of the world. And of course, that part of the world, most of the geography has changed since I was in school.
Oh yeah, me too.
And I just remember the geography the way it was when I was in school.
Well, you know what hasn't changed, though, is the water. It's still the Persian Gulf. You know, it's still the Red Sea. Those things haven't changed.
That's true. That's true.
Bill, you're looking very professorial.
Yeah, and you like my wall mural map? Isn't that awesome?
Wow.
That's awesome. I was thinking we could do that to James's wall. Maybe some hula girls, or perhaps we could get those Mack Weldon men's underwear that says daily use only and paste them across the back there.
I think Brian's been in the liquor cabinet tonight.
Hey, watch it. Me and Jack Daniels are tight.
So James, back to what I was saying. If we set the thing up in advance, then you can give me a permalink that I can give to the guest WeatherBrain, and it cuts out all this Hangout crap.
Well, just remind me like Monday morning because I will.
Yeah.
Well,
I might need it like the Friday before because I usually try to get the Hangout test done on Friday. And if we do this,
your audio is a smidgen hot, by the way.
Okay. How about that?
That's a little better.
All right. How about this?
You can bring it back up ever so slightly.
All right. Good. Thank you. How's this?
Just say something. Talk
one,
to
two,
me,
three.
man.
Hello, James Spann. How are you?
I think that'll work.
Like an eye doctor. Is this better? Or is this better?
1 or 2?
Yeah, but
2
James,
or 3?
hey, Brian, this is the very first MacBook you sold me.
I sold you a MacBook? Oh, out at the Apple store. Yeah. I forgot. That's a previous career.
Yeah, but this one's better than my current solid state drive one. It's that old 17-inch.
All right, let's get our guest on. I just got a very interesting email.
This is going to be one of the best guests we've ever had tonight, guys. I'm telling you.
Every time you say that, it goes down the tubes.
No, this one's going to be good. Guess what they did on Weather Geeks yesterday? I found out.
iMets.
They had an iMet.
Yep.
We booked ours first.
I think they figure out what we're doing and they do it.
You guys see this?
And by the way, for those that are new to this, the actual show begins here in a few moments. This is where we share boring, personal stories, obviously, humorous anecdotes, and say outrageous things. So go ahead, John.
That was one of the outrageous
things. Have you seen the 7-day? What is this? This is a 7-day departure. Rainfall across East Texas and the Deep South. Did you see these numbers?
Wow.
Yeah.
8 inches above average.
I wonder if you took a 2-week departure, what it would look like.
Well, I can do 14 days. We'll see what that looks like.
John, I was about to end October on a rather dry note at about 1/3 of the average. Holy
crazy?
mackerel.
Look at that.
Look at that.
It's like we moved the whole Gulf of Mexico northward. How much of that did you get, Kevin Sally?
I got 3.6 at my house.
Not bad. Wow. We got 1.36 here over the last 4 days. How about you, Brian?
Something a little over 2.5.
Oh, good.
Yeah, here's the observed.
I had brand new Zoysia sod, so I needed it.
There's the observed. Oh, look at these numbers. Above 20 inches.
Oh, yeah. What's that town south of Dallas that had the 20 inches?
Right, south of Dallas, north of...
Waxahachie.
Waxahachie. What was this email, James? You were speaking of.
Kevin's been to Waxahachie
multiple times.
I've been there.
I've done a school program there. Waxahachie.
They're getting ready to have the Texas Country Reporter Festival there, I think.
By the way, I want to thank our sponsors, Diet Pepsi and Captain Crunch, which is what Bill is having for his lunch there. So
this is actually ice cream. Some kind of really awesome ice cream. Some ginger molasses ice cream.
Sounds good. Send us some.
Ginger molasses.
I'm working on a Halloween favorite.
By the way, let me welcome our cable television viewers. Welcome. This is WeatherBrains, the weekly Weather Weenie show. We're waiting on our guest. The minute he shows up, we'll get this thing started. It is 8:30 Central Standard Time. The model data is rolling in right now. The OZ data. This is great. It's the most marvelous time of the year for those of us in the weather business that like to see the full model set before we go on the air at 10 o'clock Central. So I have invited our guest, and we see no evidence of him. And we'll give him a couple more minutes here.
I got his picture earlier this afternoon, and he was excited about being on the show.
Yeah, I have invited him.
Yeah.
Where's Megan?
She welched out at the last minute.
What?
She what?
What? So what did she say?
30 times the charm. I guess third strike, you're out.
No,
I put her picture in the show
notes. I want
notes.
to know what she said.
She said she had a church thing, a Bible study. And then could we do the show on Tuesday night?
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
and do it at 9:30 in the morning. It's much more convenient.
So for those that don't know, this is the young weekend meteorologist that works with us here at the TV station. I mean, come on. If somebody invited me to be on this show, I would be all over it.
They cut off their arms to be on this show, James.
I would be on this like flies on poop.
Hey, have we really started the James Spanford Game Day Picker campaign yet?
Boy, it's. I'm afraid I've overdone it. I'm afraid that I've inundated these guys. I've jammed their social media channel.
That's how you do it, though.
Good
well,
for you.
no, I'm afraid I've smothered them. So there was a Sports Illustrated piece today saying that I should be it. One just came out
there
on,
we go.
Yellowhammer News. I mean, it gained a lot of. It was like the Diane Sawyer thing. But I'm waiting on that email, or I don't even know how they tell you, or when they decide.
I think they decide on Friday.
I'm sorry, but Vern Lundquist vetoed it.
He did.
Yeah. No, he works for CBS.
I know. Vern's our good friend.
No, we'll talk about this game day thing in just a second, Bill. All right, so let's see. Tom, can you hear us?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
He's here.
Good.
I am, Bill.
I didn't have my window open. Sorry.
It's all right.
I don't recognize you without your hat on there, Tom.
There you go. I know.
Yeah.
I got one.
Put the glasses on too, Tom. That'd be better.
No, it's got to be that red hat that's in the picture.
Oh, yeah. Let me do that. It's right here.
There you go.
Little
There
show
you
and
go.
tell, right?
Yeah, now I recognize you.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
All right, let's get this thing started. Bill just hung up on us, and Nate joined us. So stand by. Let me get the recorders going here.
Lose one, gain one.
Record track number 1, and we're going to record track number 2. And again, if y'all got any funky audio noises, please mute as you make them, and that most of our people listen. Great. Yeah, I mean, I listen to this show. I listen to this show driving down the road like the next day just to check it out.
Tom's gone. He's out of here.
No, he's gone. I'll be hearing this. I mean, it's like, what are these people doing? I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, it's
Just
just
don't drive off the road.
this array
Tom
of
had second
bodily
thoughts, he's back.
noises. I mean, in occasionally you'll get the audio people saying, you guys got to clean up that audio. Well, the audio's clean. It's just people making weird noises. I mean, it's like, it just, gosh. All right, so here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wait, somebody was making a noise when I just started there. Stop
I didn't
the
do it.
noise!
Nobody saw me do it. You can't prove anything.
It's just like somebody.
I didn't say a word.
Here we go. And,
Hold your breath.
yeah, this is going right down the tubes. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! It's Monday night, time to talk a little weather. WeatherBrains episode number 511 for the 2nd of November. Wow. All the radio stations are playing Christmas music now. I'm seeing Christmas commercials all over the television. I guess 'tis the season now that Halloween is out of the way. Welcome. My name is James Spann, and we've got a really fun show coming up tonight. Got the gang mostly here. A few are absent. Rick Smith has been traveling. The warning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma. He's got another trip coming up, so Rick is out. Aubrey is out. She is under the weather this evening. But I think all of the other guests are here, and we are glad that they are. Brian Peters, the internationally beloved meteorologist. And
I know we are establishing a new record. This is one of the longest cranky spells James Spann has ever had. You've been cranky since I saw you last Thursday.
Yeah, you know, so typically, you know, I use this jabroni Wi-Fi network in here, and the connectivity is like a 1200 baud modem tonight. So I'm on a MiFi back here to doing the show. So and so far so good.
Well, I'm flying high. After we had WeatherBrains at the National Weather Center, I discovered in the picture not only am I the oldest weather brain on the crew, I'm also the shortest. But there was this lovely...
I thought you were going to say the best looking one.
There was a lovely young lady in the audience who said, "Don't let that bother you. You're the sexiest."
Oh, please.
Show
well after the show title.
Would I lie to you?
Happy hour drinks were being served down there.
Yeah, she was about 6 beers into those F5.
Could be. I didn't see.
Brian was showing the
drinking.
young lady the way to the Storm Prediction Center. Man, the SPC, it's that away. You know.
I'll tell you the tornado shelter, baby.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. By the way, did you all know that the that auditorium we were in at the National Weather Center is the tornado shelter? I thought that was cool.
And that's why you can't get any cell signal in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
But I tell you what, they had a good pipe in that place, because we plugged into their Wi-Fi, and goodness, we were getting like what? Like gigabit Ethernet or something there. That was just
7,000
awesome.
megabits
Yeah,
down,
we
I
really
think.
need to say thank you to them for what they did for us.
Yeah,
And what
that was.
Matter of fact, we're going to have those guys on the show in a few weeks just to talk some of the cool stuff they're doing and to say thank you for what they did for us.
I just want to move the lobby over here. That lobby was cool.
Now, let's get one of those weather spears and put them in the WeatherBrains office.
Wait, we have an office?
Yeah, we got to get the office first. Sorry.
Yeah, that's to go along with the WeatherBrains aircraft.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And the mahogany table.
I want one of those buses like Game Day has, James. You know, like you go around the country with a Game Day WeatherBrains bus.
So speaking of game day, I'm
speaking of, how about that segue,
on,
James?
I'm making an effort to be on this show. They need me as the guest picker. So this past Saturday, they had the Philly Fanatic, and this guy didn't say anything. He sits there. I mean, in the last time they came to my market here, they had some guy. I don't know who it was. He had the personality of a shoe.
No, that was that boxer. You better watch what you say. He'll come up there and punch you out.
This wasn't a boxer. This was some country music guy.
No. The last one was the heavyweight champion. That's the last.
No. The last time they were at the University of Alabama, they had some country music guy that looked like he was bored to death, and he didn't want to be there. So
that was like 2 guest pickers back.
Yeah, I think that was.
Well, they haven't been there. They've only been there once this year.
They had the boxer because he.
So they've been to Tuscaloosa 2 times already, and this is the third.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, they were actually in Atlanta, and then they were at Tuscaloosa for the Ole Miss game.
Yeah, no, they've only been to Tuscaloosa 1 time. So
yeah, they had the boxer. The boxer punched out all the blocking dummies.
They need me to be the guest picker on this show. And
I agree.
I agree. Up a nasty, big, bad tweet storm today, and I think I've overwhelmed these guys. I've clogged their social media channels. But I'm just saying they need some guy.
You always get on to me for touting my Alabama allegiance. How are you going to get away with being neutral in this situation?
I'm going to go use math skills and science skills and analytic skills that you pick up in doing this for 37 years. Now, I don't care. I'm not going to be a homeboy here. I'm going to go pick the teams that I think are going to win, and I'll blow these homeboys away. They will know what happened to them. And I'm also going to tell them these guys need a professional meteorologist on their staff at ESPN to help them along. You know, they're struggling a little bit with some of this weather stuff to do.
So, actually, it's interesting. Hold on. It's interesting you mentioned that, James, because Saturday I do weather support for NC State, and we have a meeting. Before every home game, there's a meeting. It's sort of just a quick, hey, here's what we are, here's how the policy works, here who takes the field first, all that kind of stuff. But key in that meeting are the television people, including in this case, this most recent weekend here at NC State was the ESPN folks. And I made it a point to introduce myself to him. He actually, during the meeting, asked probably the most questions of anybody, and most of his questions were weather-related. He was taking notes about what I had to say about what the forecast was going to be, and I made it a point to chat with him afterwards, just to extend the hand and say, look, if you guys have any questions, I'm here. Here's how to get a hold of me, da-da-da-da-da. I think if we had more people doing that sort of thing at football stadiums, that might be a way in. To help.
Could you get that person on the show, Nate, whoever that was?
I don't know. I can try it. Maybe I won't see them again for another couple of weeks.
Well, when they pick me, I'm going to invite all these guys to come on the show. So you got Reese Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Davis came out of this market. He's from here.
Do it.
Lee Corso, who's former coach.
Yeah. Herb Street.
Kirk Herb Street. I want to call him Herb Kirk Street. I need to learn these guys' names.
David Palmer.
And in the other, when they invite me on their show, I'll invite them on this show. I will prop up their sagging career. John Scala.
Yeah, I don't think you can help.
A bad rat hole. John Scala, what's happening in Lancaster tonight?
Well, James, every time I hear you use the word jabroni, it's coming across as Zamboni. So I'm thinking about the ice cream machine.
No, it's jabroni, not Zamboni. There's a big difference there.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
I just want to know what John had to do with that blimp that broke loose and crashed in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that was pretty wild, wasn't it? What did that cost? About $1 billion?
Oh, I don't think it was that much, was it?
Yeah, no, 2 to 3 billion with a B.
Oh,
yeah. And as soon as that came down, they surrounded it because I believe there's some optics on that thing they don't want anybody else to know about.
I bet.
Yeah.
That should make us all worry.
By the way, Brian, your audio's gone funky now, so I'll let you replay. So, but we got audio, but Bill and Brian just kind of go away. They start.
Hey, I've got my original 1947 MacBook Pro. It works better than any of them.
Great.
Is that any better?
Kevin Selly is desperately trying to say something. So go.
No, I'm sitting here just enjoying this. This might be one of the best intros ever because clearly James is grumpy and agitated.
Yeah, no, I'm very.
And everyone
wait,
else has
now-
been drinking.
And he
James
has
is-
been since last Thursday.
Now, I've never heard these guys talk this much. I mean,
Now, wait a minute now.
there's something special going on here.
James is grumpy. A couple of weeks ago, Brian was grumpy. Tonight, Nate sends us a note a little earlier saying that Gary Sartowski is grumpy and
man,
tweeting with somebody in Philadelphia that Doswell and I are right. Come over to the dark side.
The grumpy side.
So explain what Gary is doing up there, Nate. I mean, this has been one of the greatest. People talk about me being sassy. This guy, he's got some sass, man. This guy's good.
So, in a nutshell, he's taking issue with an article in the November issue of the Philly magazine where the columnist basically asserts that the Weather Service is incompetent, their Sandy forecasts were terrible. Quote, the column ends with sad review of how we're going downhill and we're no longer even good at predicting the weather. Rather predictable. So let's back again to the key sentence, and he's quoting the article now. We believed Sandy would turn out to sea. That's what the National Weather Service predicted. And then he goes on from there and then makes an 18-point refutation of that, and it's basically every 6 hours it's the forecast cone and track saying here's a forecast from 4.5 days out showing it hitting New Jersey. Here's one from 4 days out.
What he's doing, he's stepping up and defending the weather enterprise.
Yes. Amen.
I want this guy on our side. I like that. And he's doing it in a proper way. It's not improper. He's just showing facts. And it's just fantastic.
And at the end of this, he makes his comment, he makes his assertion, and then says, thanks for listening. And just, it's that touch at the end.
We got to get Gary back on this show. He was on here not too long ago. He's great. But, Bill, bring in our guest before he really does hang up on us.
Yeah, James, I'm excited about tonight's show. Our guest WeatherBrain is a graduate of Texas A&M. He's a lead forecaster at the National Weather Service in El Paso. He has been an incident meteorologist since 2000 and has completed, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, over 40 assignments. Tom Bird, welcome to WeatherBrains.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bill, and I appreciate being here. And yeah, you're right. I've been on 40 assignments, not all of them fires, but a wide range of responsibilities out there in the field.
So you've got some nice weather tonight in your region, but you've had some interesting weather in recent days. Tell us about it, Tom.
Yeah, the last few days we've been square in our typical fall where, we're dry and just beautiful. But leading up to that, October was a pretty wild ride for us down here in the Southwest. With El Nino, of course, it's bringing the storm track further south, and so we're getting that somewhat rare blend of the residual monsoon moisture hanging in after the season, and then the good dynamics, the shear that comes along with the upper level systems coming in off the west coast. And so the two of those coming together over us have allowed us to have a tornado in our county warning forecast area or warning area. In the Boot Hill, New Mexico, just south of the interstate, that was captured on photos from travelers on the interstate. We've had multiple reports of golf ball-sized hail across the region. In fact, our own MIC has had his roof damaged more than once with some of these supercells that have moved through our area. And this is the time of year we expect this. During the summer we get the pulse severe. We don't really have the dynamics to get what they get in the Midwest, but this time of year we start getting storms that look a little bit more like what they're used to, where Rick Smith is from.
Yeah, I guess you cover a good bit of southwestern New Mexico and the far end of the Texas. What do you call that region of Texas right there?
That is
El Paso sits in.
It's officially known as, we call it the borderland, but because we're right there up against Mexico, and then we straddle the border of New Mexico and far west Texas. But far west Texas is what we call that. It's the last two western counties, Hudspeth and El Paso. They're in Texas, and then we get south central and southwestern New Mexico. So we have a little bit of the very southern tip of the Rocky Mountains, and then we go west into the deserts to the Boot Hill and up against the Arizona border.
Well, we're good friends with Marshall Shepard, of course, at the Weather Channel, and I heard that they actually had an IMET on Weather Geeks yesterday, so I guess it was bound to happen at some point. But I have to say, we had you booked a long time before I hope they did, and I made sure to not watch the show so we would not be colored by anything they did yesterday. But I guess it was only a matter of time. So talk to us for a minute, Tom, about what is an incident meteorologist.
Yeah, I guess, well, we're a whipping post, I guess.
Whipping post, okay.
well, I guess we're a glutton for punishment too, I guess. It's a tough thing. Basically what we're National Weather Service meteorologists, forecasters that volunteer for this program where we go out of the office on site into large incidents that require a Type 1 or a Type 2 incident management team, and primarily wildfires is what we're talking about. And we go out and provide on-site services, both forecasting and briefings. And so we leave the confines of the office to go out into the field and to live in the wild with the team and all the firefighters or first responders that are out there, no matter what the incident might be. We're there to support them, and really for two reasons. One is to help them develop tactics that will work given weather conditions they face, and also to keep the folks out there safe, because that's our primary mission, both in the Weather Service and in the IMET program, is the protection of life and property. So that's really what we're there for.
Now you throw out a couple of terms of there just for a second. I think you're speaking of ICS, and I always see Nate light up like a Christmas tree whenever we bring up ICS. So talk briefly about what that means and what it entails.
Well, ICS is the Incident Command System, and it's kind of started with the military, I believe, and it's expanded into emergency management. And it's a way of building an organization where you have a whole bunch of entities come together for a common goal and common purpose. And it's a way of all these entities coming together and working together to be able to create an organization, a machine basically that tackles the obstacles ahead of it. And it's incredible how well oiled it is and how streamlined it's become and how well it works. I've been doing this for 15 years, and so I've been immersed in it very intimately on each one of these assignments. And as big as the organization is, I'm still amazed at how well everything works. You have all these different sections that each have their own task, and they all come together and work for a common purpose. And at the end of the day, it just works so well, and it accomplishes the mission and does so pretty efficiently.
So, Tom, I thought that IMETs were sort of a recent development, but you pointed out to me when we were doing our hangout test that there's nothing new about these things, that Brian Peters was even one on horseback back in 1910. You got a picture of Brian, right? On horseback. And I think you got a couple of slides that sort of tell the history of this thing. I thought those were pretty fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get to those in a second. I think Brian does look like our first IMET there.
He kind of resembles John Park Finley a little bit.
And I thought you were going to say our first president.
I didn't realize that Colonel Sanders was an IMET.
We got a million of them. We'll be here till midnight.
Well, I tell you, I've got my IMET face on today. I haven't shaved in about 3 days, and that's kind of the way it goes when you get on assignment.
It's no shave November, don't you know?
True, yes. But we're probably the best kept secret in the Weather Service. We've been doing this for about 100 years almost now, and I was looking at history, and there's conflicting whether we sent our first IMET out in 1916, which would mean next year is our centennial year, or if it's 1928. I can't really tell which. I'm getting conflicting. We tried to put together a history of the IMET program, and I'm getting a little bit of conflicting from a couple of different websites that we have put together. But yeah, I can show you kind of what we used to do. Let me share a couple of pictures with you, and tell me when you see. Are you there yet? Have I done it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Screen share is not always the easiest thing to deal with.
Well, okay, let me, I guess I got to get it on top, so, oh, there we go. There you go. You should be able to see
There you
it.
go. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I was told that's 1916, and the very first IMETs, we arrived on scene just like everybody else did on horseback with a pack train of equipment there. I'm not sure back in 1916 what all services we provided. Without computers and stuff, I'd be lost without them. But definitely, all the provisions he would need to keep himself taken care of, and also to be able to provide some kind of services. So that was back, circa 1920, and then you move into the 30s. We're now mechanical now, and this is a 1936 coupe, I believe. So you can see we're working, doing charts and such out in the field, basically, on enhanced field support for fire weather. And then we move on to the 60s, and now we're complete with a camper. You can see the Cotton Region shelter over there that we
Mine still has one of those.
Yeah, we've got a couple here in the office. You see his anemometer up high and everything, and so we actually even had it labeled Fire Weather Mobile Station. So this is part of the evolution of the program. Then we moved into the 80s, and we started helicoptering in trailers that we'd expand into living quarters and working quarters, and that was called an Air Transportable Meteorological Unit, ATMU. We found out those were just barely transportable by helicopters. They were kind of heavy and kind of expensive, and so those didn't stick with us real long. And so we got into the 90s, and we got it even more compact into 7 cases, weighed about 390 pounds worth of equipment with theodolite. You see up here we're releasing a pieball on one of the incidents so that we can get the winds aloft, tracking it with theodolite. Started deploying on-site remote weather sensing equipment, and then we had a 2-way satellite dish where we would send up requests to a satellite for certain packages of information. They would send it back to us. We had a computer. We'd look at it, and this is when I came into the program, when we had these cases and everything. And that gets us through the 90s. We've moved on since then into air cards, jetpacks and PCs, and now we are. How do I end screen share?
You did already.
You did.
I did. Good. Exactly. That's what I was hoping to do. And now we're here. We're using our cell phones as hotspots, and most of the fire teams, they bring in what's called a COW, which is a cell on wheels, and gives us cell phone services in the middle of nowhere. And we use that to. We have some proprietary software that we use to get the information we need.
So you mentioned a jetpack. Is that the thing, James, that y'all use in the field now to consolidate cell services, or what is that?
Jetpack's just this MiFi. It's a single Verizon LTE. In the field, our guys for the HD live shots, it's called a Live U, and it takes like 4 cell vendors and combines the bandwidth and a little small thing that sticks on a camera. It's amazing.
But it sounds like you have to bring your own cell tower, some of these places that you end up, Tom.
That's what the teams do. They contract with the local provider down there, and they, we're very remote. We're in mountainous regions many times, and so all the cell signals are blocked. And so they'll put a cell tower up just for us, and it comes in on a trailer, or sometimes they'll pull in a satellite service that will bring satellite dishes in for us, and then we'll all work off of that.
Yeah, could you leave it in my driveway when you're not using it? That would be helpful.
Yeah, it would be great.
But so talk for a minute about why we need incident meteorologists, Tom.
Well, I hit on it earlier, Bill. It's kind of a twofold, and there's 2 facets to it. The most important is the safety of the firefighters and the other first responders, whether it be Deepwater Horizon, where you got folks out in the Gulf on boats, and the Columbia Space Shuttle that came down over East Texas and Louisiana, that fell in late winter. You still had icing, and then it went into the spring where you had the spring severe weather outbreaks with tornadoes, and you got folks in the woods and they can't see the sky, and so you need someone that's keeping a continuous weather watch and give them 2 to 3 day outlook so that they can plan accordingly. So the primary reason really is for safety. If they've done studies on all the burnovers and fatalities on fires, and almost all of them include some kind of weather element, and when that weather element is there, it's usually an unexpected wind shift or increase in wind speeds, and we're there to hopefully be able to give them enough notice to keep people out of harm's way. And then the second reason we're there is for tactical reasons. You have this team put together, and you have an operational section, and their whole reason for being there is to try to corral this fire, control it, maybe extinguish it, protect values at risk. And if they're using tactics that aren't going to mesh well with the expected weather, then that basically it'll fail. If they're going to scratch lines somewhere, but we're expecting strong winds and it's going to blow up past that line before they get it constructed, they need to know that. And so we're there to help them be successful in their tactics and to keep folks safe.
So Tom, this has been a bad fire year. How does it stack up against other years? And talk about some of the bigger fires and any that you've been involved in.
Well, 2000 is when I came in, and the reason I did come in is because it was a really bad year. And back then we only had about 40 IMETs, and so we were falling short of the need. We weren't denying any requests, but we were getting real thin. And so they put out a call, and my local management was receptive to it, and I really wanted to become an IMET, so I became one. And back then that was the worst fire season on record. Well, today in 1915 it's the 7th worst, which tells you we've had 6 seasons worse than the worst season that we had back in 2000. And this year, I believe, is the worst now on record. It's 9.4 million acres burnt at over 53,000 fires nationwide this fire season. So it's been a big year for wildfire across the United States, especially out west. Of course, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, down into California, drought, and season after season after season of really warm conditions and very dry conditions. And that preconditions all the fuels, and then you get beetles come in when the trees are drought stricken, and so now you're looking at conditions that promote not only wildfire, because that's a natural thing with lightning strikes, but wildfires that used to be manageable are now so intense that they grow much bigger than they used to.
So talk about fire policy, because for years the idea was to put fires out before they got out of control, or to put them out, as you said, by the next day. How has that policy evolved over the years, and are we still paying the price for those early policy decisions?
Well, that's a subject that, as a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, we're talking about other agencies' policies, and so it's a slippery surface for me to get on, so I have to be careful. But what I will say is, it's kind of started in 1910, when you had the big burn, or otherwise known as the big blow up in the Northwest and Idaho, Coeur d'Alene area, where you burned 3 million acres in just a couple of days with 80-mile-per-hour winds. The systems were coming on shore in August of 2010. And at that point, the Forest Service has said, you know what, we're going to go full suppression on every fire. We're going to put them all out. And they're going to try to get them out by 10 o'clock the next day, because by that time they'd realized that the afternoons were when the fires would grow. And so they figured if they can catch it before the next afternoon, they can keep it small. And then they followed that. And then 1944, they started the Smokey Bear campaign. And then 1950, they actually found a actual Smokey Bear and used him as the face of the campaign. And for over 50 years, this was the tactic. And what they found out was, fire's natural, and it keeps the fuels mitigated to where those fires are more manageable. And now that we've gone 50 years of not allowing fire to come through and reduce fuels, now we're dealing with a situation where the fires have so much more fuel to work with that they're much more intense and much more dangerous to fight. And so now, over the last 15 years, they've noticed that, and they're trying to get away from it, and they're allowing fire to naturally occur more so, and then they're putting a lot of prescribed fire on the ground. And so it took 50 years to get where we're at. It's going to take a long time to get back.
So, Tom, what's the requirements for an agency to activate an IMET with the Weather Service? I mean, it can't be for every 5-acre fire.
Well, exactly. We have an agreement, a memorandum of understanding with the federal agencies and some of the state agencies. And typically, what happens is when you go back to ICS, Incident Command System, there's different levels There's Type 1, which is the biggest organization that they bring to an incident, and there's Type 2, which is the next step down. We support those two levels of incident. So it's not really based on the size of the incident, it's based on the complexity. And so, a fire could be 300 acres and we'll be there. But another fire, because there's a wild urban interface, or there's something very complicated, so it requires a bigger organization. But you can have a fire in the wilderness that's 30,000 and we won't be there.
Tom, I wanted to ask you about some of the physical requirements that are a necessity for an IM.
Oh, well, we don't really have any. If you're a firefighter, you have to get what's called red carded, where you actually have to do what's called a pack test. You have to walk a certain amount of distance with a pack in a certain time. You have to do a certain amount of sit-ups and push-ups and stuff like that. And you have to show that your physical abilities can withstand the rigors of a fire line. We don't have to do that as IMETs. We can, and we're encouraged to do that. But we're typically not on the fire line doing, heavy lifting. We are out there. We're out there a lot. We're requested out there by the division supervisors to get a lay of the land and help them with their strategies day by day. But basically, you got to be able to handle sleeping in a tent, being cold at night, hot during the day. Tired a lot. Very long days. We usually typically put in a 16-hour day. We're often the first person up in camp and sometimes the last person to go to sleep. It's 14 days, if you go full assignment. And so, day by day by day, that grinds on you. So you got to have some endurance in your mental and your physical abilities. I bring these with me on every assignment. These are cough drops. Eating smoke day by day by day and talking so much gives you a sore throat and gets you sick. Seems like most times than not.
You talk about the fire calls, but what other sorts of things will IMETs typically be sent on? I know fire is the number one thing. What other sorts of things might you get assigned to?
Yeah, more than 9 times out of 10 we're sent to a wildfire, but we were on Deepwater Horizon, when you had the big oil spill in the Gulf. Going back from that, we sent IMETs to recovery missions after Katrina, and then Rita came in. I was on that, one of the IMETs on that. Space Shuttle Columbia, I've already mentioned, we supported, because what they did is they used a lot of Forest Service folks to grid all that portion of Texas and Louisiana to try to find pieces of the space shuttle. And so we were with that. We go to Australia and support the Bureau of Meteorology over there. Like I said, oil spills. After tornado outbreaks, if they have a large recovery mission going on, we'll support that too. Political conventions. We've even done the large political conventions, and the reason why is there's a threat of WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. So anytime there's a Type 1 or Type 2 team developed, in the ICS system, a lot of times we'll be integrated within that. So yeah, we've definitely expanded the program to include pretty much any hazards or anything like that.
Do IMETs have to go through ICS certification, or is that just something you pick up OJT while you're there?
Oh, that's a good question, Nate. No, actually, to become an IMET, first you have to, of course, be a Weather Service forecaster and have probably about 3 years on station, and then after that, you do about another 250 hours of training, and much of that is ICS training. We do the ICS 100, 200, 300, 700, and whatnot. So you go through all that training, but then a lot of that's on the job, of course, because you can train all you want, but until you actually get into the organization and actually see where you fit in, how it works, that's when you start seeing the big picture and where you fit in and everything. So we do a lot of that. So yeah, a lot of the training, is what we do, and then seeing it firsthand, being part of it, after. I remember being very intimidated the first couple of assignments and being scared and being confused when I get there. It's a big operation and many pieces, many cogs in the machine, and it wasn't until my second or third year that I started really getting comfortable with how everything fit together.
Tom, do they ever send? Oops, go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, Brian. Tom, what's the chain of command when you're on site then?
Chain of command, well, there's, within the team, there's of course the incident commander, and he's ultimately, he's the chief there and then he has underneath him what's called the C&G, which is Command and General Staff, and so under him will be the safety officers, the public information folks, the liaison folks that integrate with the local officials, and then below that you have the sections. So you'll have operations section, you have the planning section, you have the logistics and the finance and all that, and we fall within the planning section. And basically, we're intelligence for the operations itself, and that's where all the technical specialists fall, and that's where they make all the maps and all the incident action plans that everybody sees. And so we work with the fire behavior analyst within that section. The two of us are like, peanut butter and jelly. We're together all the time, and the two of us are working together to support operations with what we think the weather's going to do and how we think it's going to impact the fire.
So Tom, a minute ago you talked about fire mitigation and controlled burns and things like that. Those have sort of fallen out of favor, haven't they? What are some alternatives that are better than prescribed burns, and why are they not as in favor as they once were?
Well, actually, I don't know if that's really an accurate statement, Bill, to be quite honest with you. I think it depends on where you're at and how receptive the locals are to it, and if there's been an escaped prescribed fire, recently, then of course everybody's not going to be they're not going to want another one in their neighborhood, in their backyard. But if they've seen it be effective and successful, then of course people are going to buy into it. The other things you can do is mechanical treating, which is actually very labor intensive and very expensive, and that's why it's not as cost efficient, and it's why it's not done as much, and it's slow and it takes a long time. And think about burning 1 million acres, you barely touch the landscape really in the big scheme of things. And so trying to go through and thin out mechanically and all that kind of stuff is just not feasible. It's a lot easier to get a low intensity fire to move across the land, and you cover a lot more ground that way. And so really, I think if you're looking at it from the wildland, the agency's perspective, I think they do appreciate fire and understand it, and they're always looking for opportunity to use it. From the public, it's a mixed bag.
So, Tom, you talked today when we were speaking earlier about the wildland fire triangle. So talk about that briefly, and then touch on some of the elements of weather that really affect you when you're on a big fire.
Yeah, you bet, Bill. When we're talking fire itself, just fire, there's 3 ingredients necessary for a fire. So they call it the triangle. It's oxygen, it's heat, and it's the combustibles, the fuel itself. Now, when we get into wildland, we have what's called a triangle for that too, and it's how the wildfire behaves. And that there's 3 things to that. So we have a triangle there, and it's the topography, and it's the fuels. Now, the topography you can look at, and it's not going to change from today to the end of the fire. That ridge is going to be there next week. That valley is going to be there next week. And the fuels, you can get a handle on the state of the fuels, how dry they are, what type they are, how they burn, and that's not going to change too much over the course of the incident. But the one thing that I haven't talked about yet, that's the third part of the triangle that changes all the time, and it's the hardest to get the handle on, and the reason why we're there is the weather. So you got topography, fuels, and weather. And the weather's the one thing that bites them, and because they can't see it, and you can't see it tomorrow. And so that's why we're there. We're there to handle that part of the equation. And like I said earlier, that part of the equation is what causes tactics to go bad and for folks to get burnt over. And it hampers other kinds of operations. Like, we use helicopters and air tankers and stuff like that. And on a windy day, those things get grounded. Or if there's too much smoke and there's an inversion and you can't get the smoke out, then they're not effective. And so we're there to support air operations, ground operations, water operations, all that kind of stuff. And so, we handle the weather part of the wildland fire behavior triangle.
So Tom, talk about some of the big fires in history, like Man Gulch in 1949, or South Canyon, or any of these big fires like Yarnell Hill. What weather elements were at play in some of those that you know about?
Well, South Canyon, I've all those have had books written on them, and I'm and so I read all that. Yeah, there you go, Fire on the Mountain.
Todd McLean's and Sebastian Jünger's right here.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the part of the program where Bill Murray shows that he is better read than everyone else.
Well, Well, I got those two also, so I'm okay right there. But yeah, and I've got others. But
this is the part of the program where our guest shows that he is better read than everyone else.
There you go. But I think South Canyon was a cold front coming through that was expected, but it got there early or something like that. And thunderstorm was the deal on Yarnell Hill, where a thunderstorm outflow came in and turned the winds 180 degrees. And then I can't remember Man Gulch back in '49. Like I said, I read the book. I can't remember what the weather element was there. It's like the first two was wind that I just mentioned, and I'm sure Man Gulch was wind also. But it takes more than just that one thing. It takes the fuels being right, the fire being right, being in the wrong place, the wrong time. But yeah, like I said, wind is almost always a contributing factor, and often the main contributing factor when we're talking about safety or lack of it on a fire. And we teach a lot of, as IMETs and fire weather program managers in the National Weather Service, we teach a lot of fire weather courses to firefighters. There's a huge slew of courses that they have to take to get certified and go out on fire in different responsibility modes. And each one of those courses has a pretty extensive weather section, and we go to these fire academies and we teach that, and we have watch outs and watch out for the thunderstorm. Know your current and expected weather. Are winds becoming stronger and shifting, is that kind of stuff. And so it's neat to be working with a partner or a user of our products that is so in tune with the impacts and know just how critical it is to have the information we have to deliver to them.
So, Tom, you've taken up a new hobby recently, I understand, that will help you understand what you're dealing with when you're out there forecasting these type of events, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of stupid. Yeah, I think I'm the talk of the IMET program because of this. I lost how to share. I lost my share button. Let's see, where am I at?
James probably took it away from you for some reason.
Show title.
Yeah. Man, I don't know where I'm at. Lost.
We're like that all the time.
Dang. Oh, wait a minute. There it is. I got it. It just takes me a minute. I'm kind of slow. I'm glad I'm not this slow on a fire.
Or in your new hobby.
All right. Did you see that?
There we go.
Ah.
Yeah.
You can what? Do aerial reconnaissance of the fire.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. That terrified me. Well, you know what? I did this for two reasons. One, it looks fun, and so I said, and I'm scared of heights, and I said I want to overcome that and challenge myself and do something that looks fun. But being a meteorologist and working with micrometeorology like we do on fires and mountain meteorology like we typically do in the West, we talk about the rotors and the wave clouds and all this kind of stuff and how we funnel through gaps and you get the upslope and the downslope, depending on the time of day. I said, there's probably not a better way to experience that and try to get a feel for it than to do this and just basically sit in a lawn chair 1,000 feet off the ground and see what it's like. And so that's what I did. Am I out of screen share or I'm still there?
You are.
I'm out. Okay, good. So that's why I did that, and this has been a learning experience, and I guess I should right now challenge all you guys to take it up too.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I'm working on a pilot's license and flying a plane that has a max gross weight of 1,600 pounds. I mean, your car weighs twice that.
Yeah.
And flying it, most of my training's been 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet, and you're climbing through the boundary layer up into the mixed layer a lot of times, coming back down through that again, and I really have gotten a really cool perspective on micro and boundary layer meteorology that I never had before, and I have a much deeper appreciation for this is the top of the boundary layer today.
Yeah, Nate, you're right. As light as my whole setup weighs about 65 pounds besides myself.
Ooh.
And so I'm at the whim of the air. Wherever it wants to move, that's where I go.
Let me tell you that a 1,600-pound Cessna 152 is also very much a
yeah. Well, I know what you mean about the boundary layer, because you can act, on a hazy morning you can see it, and so as I'm climbing up through it, I can tell when I'm getting close, and so I brace for the wind shear because I always check the sounding before I go up, as a smart person. And so I realized, okay, I'm going to hit a 40 degree difference in wind direction and a 10 knot speed difference, and so I'm going to feel it. And so it's amazing, and I keep a vario with me, which tells me my altitude and my ground speed. So I'm able to actually see the wind directions and the wind speeds and feel the shear boundaries between everything. It's pretty cool.
The first one of those small plane flights I went on in recent time anyway was about a year and a half ago, and we flew from near Raleigh out to the coast and back, and it was a night flight. And I remember, there was a very distinct period of time where we climbed up above the inversion, and it went from being sort of humid and nasty to cool and comfortable and very smooth for most of the flight. And then on our way back down, we descended back through the top of the boundary layer, hit that moist air again, and then the same thing going back in reverse. And that was that first moment of that whole. I took an entire class on that, and it never really gelled until that moment. And now it's really cool to have that appreciation of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of like getting off the surface, especially this time of year when we get the cold air pooling at the surface, and I take off and it's 38 degrees and it's cold and I'm bundled up, and then I climb up to about 45 and I go, wow, it's nice up here.
Now, does that ever have an impact on a fire in terms of altitude, the inversion itself, Tom, in terms of that moist air at a low level and a drier air making the fuels more susceptible at a higher elevation?
Yeah, we call that the thermal belt when we're talking, about meteorology and its effect on the fire. What happens is, when the cool air drains at night, colder air, by nature gets a higher relative humidity, even if there's not much more moisture in it, and so the fire down in the lower elevations, because fire will expand, will extend from low elevation to high elevation as it climbs up the slopes and to the ridges and out of the valleys. And so what we find is the fire behavior diminishes at night below the thermal belt, but it will continue into the nighttime much longer and maybe even all night long in that thermal belt because the relative humidity is lower because the temperature's higher. And so and if it does that day after day after day, then the fuels are drier, and so therefore we try to gauge how deep that thermal belt will be, and operations kind of plans their tactics based on expecting some increased fire behavior when a fire's in that range of elevations.
Well, we were just commenting over here in chat just that we can see how fascinating this material is, Tom. So thank you so much for sharing it with us. Now, in July of 2013, you were working a different fire on a very historic night, a very fateful and tragic night. Tell us about your experience remotely with the Yarnell Hill fire.
Yeah, and we're talking Yarnell Hill now, and we're talking the Granite Mountain Hot Shots out of Prescott, Arizona, and that was a day that I think I told you earlier. I had tears in my eyes that evening. We do a planning meeting each night where we talk about the next day with the overhead team, and it's stand-up briefing with weather and everything, and fire behavior and the whole spectrum. And in the middle of I go first. We always put weather first on these incidents, and so I was up there talking, and just seconds into my talk, the IC left, which is very uncommon. And within a minute and a half, while I was still talking, he came back, and he was noticeably upset. He even was bent over with his head in his hands. And when we all got done talking, he stood up and told us what had happened. And these are our brothers, just one state away, our brothers and sisters, affected. 19 down on a wildfire, and here we are doing the same thing, working on a wildfire. And not only that, we're working on the largest wildfire in New Mexico history, the Whitewater Baldy Fire. Never had one. No, I'm sorry, we're working on the Silver Fire, which is a different one. Anyway, so we're working on a large fire. It was over 150,000 acres. And you realize what just happened with them 19 firefighters burnt over and died. And here we are, we're playing with the same elements, just one state away. And it brings home the fact that every day there's that potential, as many things as we put into play to try to keep that from happening. And every time we have this happen, we think that'll be the last one. We've learned another lesson, and so it won't happen again. And it's inevitable. It's just going to keep happening. Time. With time. Being in this environment and doing what those guys are doing, it's going to happen. And you just got to keep moving with what you're doing, because we had our own mission and there was other fires going on, and but yeah, that was tough. And I stayed up on that, and I watched all the stuff they had on TV when they had the memorials and all that, and it was a punch in the gut, and it was weird. It was we were all in a fog for the next several days. You couldn't think clearly. We were giving crews the opportunity to leave the fire if they wanted to, because we just knew their heads may not be in it, and we didn't want those. We didn't want that on the line.
So that obviously had to be a very moving event for you. Any other memorable events that stand out for you, Tom, in your career?
Yeah, and this one's not fire related, but when I was on the spaceship Columbia recovery mission, we were in Lufkin, Texas, and we'd set up an incident command post there, and we actually had shuttle astronauts working with us, kind of as they're the liaison. We were working for them, finding their shuttle, and their former astronauts, their fellow astronauts had deceased, and they were the most gracious, professional people in the world. They demonstrated all kinds of NASA gear for us and shuttle gear, and I made some really good friends out of those people. And as a kid, when you think of astronauts, you put these folks on pedestals, and then to be working right next to them and realize they're just like you and me, it was just amazing. I couldn't believe that. And then to work on there's a fire in Capitan, New Mexico. Can't remember what year that was, 2004. That's where Smokey Bear was found, just 120 miles north of where I am right now in Santa Teresa, New Mexico. It's in the Lincoln National Forest in the southern end of the Rocky Mountains. And in 1915, there was a 17,000-acre fire called the Capitan Gap Fire, and Smokey was found in Capitan Gap on that fire, burnt. And so in 2004, we find ourselves back there working another fire, and that area hadn't burnt when I went up with the F-band and a few other operational folks. I actually got to witness the exact spot that Smokey was found, and that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, 2 days later, it burned again. And the neat thing, though, was to be able to see how 50 years of regrowth had made it look pretty nice again. You had 25, 30-foot pine trees, stand of pine trees all over that area. It looked like it had never burned. It was beautiful. Then we went back after that, and it was back to burnt sticks like you see if you go find an old historic photo of where they found him. It looks like that again.
Wow. Tom, I wanted to ask you about these microclimatic changes that occur that you have to deal with on the fly. And what comes to mind are these super adiabatic lapse rates that develop when you get these really hot fires, and you can end up with either pyrocumulus or maybe even a fire tornado. Have you experienced those?
Oh yeah, it's great. We got into some meteorology here. I appreciate that. Yeah, I may have mentioned the Missionary Ridge fire, which was in Durango, Colorado, southwestern portion of Colorado. There's a big, huge dry lake bed there called Valencia or something like that lake, and it's mostly dry, so it's a sandy bottom. And everybody that lived in that area had taken all their RVs and boats and tractors and parked it in the middle there because there was no fuel, and they said, okay, it won't burn here. But it was surrounded by the forest that was burning, and huge fire tornado, fire whirl. It snapped 12-inch trees as it was coming out of the woods. Came out of the woods, and this fire plume dominated every day because, like you said, super adiabatic. It plumed because it had just this huge vent of warm air, and then, of course, the fire created some of its own upward motion. Anyway, it created a big, huge fire tornado. And back then, I didn't really want to call it that, but now we kind of do. and it went out into the lake bed and burned all that stuff down anyway, which was kind of ironic. But there's great video of it, and I was at IMET then, and the video was taken by some of the firefighters that had retreated into that area, and it was dropping birds out of the sky. It was weird because in the video you can see birds just falling out of the sky because they had been overcome by the superheated air in the vicinity of this fire tornado. And so, it burned everything that they thought was in a place that didn't have fuel for a quarter of a mile around it. And so, yeah, I've been involved in that. And, the other thing is each afternoon what would happen is, like you said, John, you get pyrocumulus would develop on top of the smoke column. And then when the sun set and it lost some of that heat, and we get sprinkles, but it wasn't enough, of course, to put the fire out. When the sun would start setting and you lose some of that, solar heating, the column would collapse. And within this column is hundreds, billions and millions of little fire embers, which are all basically little matches waiting to hit the ground as the column collapses. And depending on which way the upper level winds were, the column would bend one way or another. And so one of my tasks on that fire was, if it would plume dominate, they would say, okay, tell us which way it's going to fall. And so they'd spend that whole afternoon trying to do what they call structure protection, and they would try to save the houses underneath, wherever I said I thought the column would fall. If I thought it'd fall to the northwest, they'd look out to the northwest and find out what values were at risk, what homes and structures and towers and all that, and try to save them by reducing the fuels around all those structures. And even if we nailed it, it really didn't matter. It was a really sad thing. It would still burn everything down that night, because once it started falling, everybody had to retreat and get out of there. It's said that we don't really stop these fires. The weather finally, cooperates with us. We try to control them and manage them and kind of corral them and protect structures in their way, but they pretty much do what they want to do. And that's a good classic case where this one fire had the fire tornado and the plume dominated columns that were collapsing, and every time it collapsed, it would get outside of the lines and we'd have to start over.
So Tom, it looks like this is glamorous and this is exciting and all that, but it's also stressful and it's hard on you, right?
I don't know where glamorous fits into this, actually.
Bill thinks it's glamorous.
Here's what's
the world would probably look at it and think this is exciting, but this has got to be stressful on you and your family.
Oh, it's very stressful. I mean, when you're in the office environment, it's very regimented and scheduled, and you know exactly what you're doing and when you're doing it and when you're off and when you're on. I can get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, can you leave for a fire at 8 o'clock, the following morning? And so whatever plans you had, you don't have anymore, as long as your office can support you being gone and fill your shifts. And so it affects us, but also affects the rest of the staff, if they can fill in. But, you lose your plans are gone, and you can be gone for 16 days. It's 2 travel days plus 14 days. You can get extended another week, so you can be gone 21, 22, 23 days before you get back. And during this time, you're working 14 to 16-hour days every day, not a day off. You're in the elements, so you're sleeping on the ground in a tent or in a car. A lot of times we get vans and sleep in the vans. You're living in the woods, and so it's freezing at night, and it's hot during the day, and it's windy, and it's dusty, and you're eating smoke, and you're on the fire line, and it's stressful mentally also. One of the reasons I got into this is when you're in the office, you're not interfacing with your users. And so there's a disconnect between what you're doing and how and what you're doing, what that information's being used for, and how it's helping or not. On a fire, that's definitely not the case. You are side by side, shoulder to shoulder, sitting next to, standing next to, working with everybody that's using your forecast. You get immediate feedback, whether it be positive or negative. That is incredible. You can make tweaks and adjustments that you can't make in the office. Our models, we're using 5 and 2.5 kilometer, which is square miles. But on the fire, we're forecasting for square acres. And so we're using this micrometeorology, and we're having to actually go out there and see, because, we can use something like Wind Ninja and get the lay of the land, on there, and it'll show us where the winds will speed up through gaps and where it'll slow down in valley bottoms. But until you're actually there and you see it, and you're actually putting remote automated weather stations out there, because we do that too, and you're actually sensing everything, then you start fine-tuning your forecast. And the individual division supervisor will say, come to my part of the fire. I want you to see what's happening and get a feel for this, so that when you're doing your forecast, you'll understand what we're dealing with our topography. Or they'll say, I got a burnout I want to do this evening, and they'll give you the criteria they need weather-wise for it to be successful. And so you tell them a yes, no, it will work for them, that kind of thing.
So Tom, you touched on something there. This has to also affect your office, and how does your MIC decide whether he or she can afford to lose you, and how do they handle the pay that you get during that time that you're on an incident?
Well, yeah, that's a difficult call, and I've been saying this for years. The system is kind of deploying IMETs. We go from a regimented, scheduled operations here to all of a sudden, in a moment's notice, someone is gone, and you have to fill in behind. It's not just I can be gone and my work sit there for a week or two and then I come back to it. When I leave, someone's got to take up that slack, and so for an MIC, you just got to know that he's got adequate staffing to be able to fill that. And as far as the financial aspect of it, when we leave, the Weather Service pays our base 8 like it would if we were working here in the office, but then the agency responsible for the fire pays all the overtime, not only for us, but forever is back at the home office filling in our shifts. So it's actually beneficial financially for the MIC, for me, or for us to be gone, because then you start getting land management agencies to kind of pay some of our costs here in the office.
Well, I'll give all the panelists a chance to think of any other last-minute questions they want to ask before I turn it back over to James. But I want to say a special thank you tonight to Tim Bryce in your office, who's one of the good friends of the show and a WeatherBrains alum, and I want to thank him immensely for recommending that you be on the show. It's one of the most fascinating shows I've been a part of, and it's been very enlightening and very fascinating for me, Tom. So with that, I'll look and see if anybody else has any questions. It doesn't
I've got one, Bill.
Like they do, but Bill Brian does, and then I'll let you throw it to James.
Okay, Tom. I'm curious about you. You've talked about the weather briefings, and you're briefing the people in the incident command. I don't quite know how to phrase the question, but do you, at most of these incident situations, do you have abilities to communicate with the firefighters that are in the field? I mean, we all know that you can probably do some very good forecasts, but sometimes either something changes and from the briefing to when they're out there. Do you have ways of getting that information out to those that are in the field?
Yeah, that's a great question. If we didn't, then there would really be no reason for us to be out there, because we'd be dropping the ball there. No, we carry King radios, which is what everybody on the line has. As an IMET, we go to supply and we go to communications. We check out all the same gear that they have. We have all the fire shelter. I have a fire shelter right here. We carry these with us. We have the hard hats, the gloves, the PPE, the Nomex that doesn't burn. We go out to the line. We carry these radios, and we have a continuous weather watch during the day while they're out on the line, and sometimes at night if we're expecting something, if they're doing night operations. And so we do radio updates through the day if things are changing or things are significant. So yeah, we do that, and we're encouraged to do that. If we see the kind of day that is iffy and we're expecting that they need eyes in the skies, we tell them to have a lookout that can radio down, can see the sky 360, and then we'll tell them, we will give you periodic updates on the thunderstorm generation, which way they're moving, what kind of outflows we're seeing, distance to time till arrival and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're there like crazy. And you're talking about briefings. We do the briefings in the morning of the cruise, but we do public briefings. We brief I brief governors and senators, and we brief presidents. We do the full spectrum. While we're on assignment.
All right, thank you. I figured it was something like that.
Yeah, sure, Brian. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, what's the longest stretch you've worked in terms of the number of consecutive days on a mission?
Well, like I said, right now the way it's supposed to be is everybody works 14 days on the assignment. So you have a travel day, 14 days, and a travel day. So that's a 16 span. But what they can do, if it's like this year, it's a critical year, they're getting short and thin on resources, they can ask you to extend another 7 days. And I think they have to give you 1 day off, then you go back for another week. and you just stay there. You just don't work that day. So you can be gone 23 days.
Do you have enough people with the current status of the budgets and the Weather Service and staffing issues? Did you have enough people?
We do not ever turn down a request. We have not. It's hard on our end sometimes. You know, a lot of offices are short-staffed. A lot of offices are having to say we can't make our IMET available. But the agency as a whole, the IMET program, is always sending to every request. So we're not denying anybody our services. We're sucking it up. We're making it work. That's why I say it's kind of a square peg in a round hole to be able to do it the way we do it. But we make it work. We as an agency and as individual offices, we make sacrifices to be able to send people out, because we know this is a high priority for us to be able to make this kind of support. You know, the Weather Service in general is going to IDSS, you know, impact-based decision support, and they're modeling a lot of what they're going to after our program that we've been doing for so long, because they see it working. So, you know, there's challenges ahead to expand it for the whole Weather Service, but they can see that what we've done in our program, you know, over the course of decades, you know, we fine-tuned it and made it work well. So we don't deny requests, but we do have challenges filling them.
Awesome. Well, listen, we have to take a break here real quick for some recorded segments. We have Professor Peters in WeatherBrains 101, Tony Rice in the Astronomy Report. We're going to come back. We'll do the Weather Roundup, Picks of the Week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
Have you ever heard the name Ferrell? Well, the answer to that question is yes. If you've listened to WeatherBrains 101, American meteorologist William Ferrell was born in 1817 and died in 1891. The Ferrell cell is named after him. This cell is located between the polar cell and the Hadley cell in the atmosphere. However, some argue that the Ferrell cell does not actually exist because the circulation in the atmosphere is actually much more complex than the zonal maps show. The simplified version that shows the Ferrell cell, therefore, is somewhat inaccurate. Now, Ferrell worked to develop theories that explained atmospheric circulation at mid-latitudes in great detail. He focused on the properties of warm air and how it acts through the Coriolis effect as it rises and rotates. Ferrell demonstrated that it is the tendency of rising warm air as it rotates due to the Coriolis effect to pull in air from more southerly, warmer regions and transport it poleward. It is this rotation which creates the complex curvatures in the frontal system, separating the cooler Arctic air to the north from the warmer continental tropical air to the south. The meteorological theory that Ferrell worked on was originally created by Hadley, but Hadley had overlooked a specific and important mechanism that Ferrell was aware of. He correlated the motion of the Earth with the motion of the atmosphere in order to show that centrifugal force is created. The atmosphere then cannot maintain a state of equilibrium because the motion is either increasing or diminishing. This depends on which way the atmosphere is moving with regard to the Earth's surface. Hadley had erroneously concluded that there was a conservation of linear momentum. However, Ferrell showed that this was not the case. Instead, it is the angular momentum that must be taken into account. In order to do this, one must study not just the movement of the air, but the movement of the air relative to the Earth itself. Without looking at the intersection between the two, the whole picture is not seen. Another famous contributor to the field of meteorology. If you have a question about the weather, you can drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
This past Saturday, a shopping mall-sized asteroid passed Earth. It came within 1.3 lunar distances, about 310,000 miles. This asteroid, actually most likely a dead comet which has shed all of its volatile ice, was discovered back on October 10, 2015, by the Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii. This begs the question, though, why didn't we see it until now? The Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System, or Pan-STARRS, like similar programs before it, detects near-Earth objects like this by scanning the sky each night and looking for objects that weren't in the same place the previous night. The first two Pan-STARRS telescopes are capable of monitoring 80% of the sky, but they focus on the ecliptic, that area of the sky where the sun and planets and our moon travel. This roughly flat plane in the solar system that they travel in is also where most asteroids live. But this one was a bit different. Its orbit dips down below the ecliptic in an area that isn't scanned as often. While Saturday's object wasn't visible to the naked eye or even most amateur telescopes, NASA took the opportunity to study it via radar, using the same giant antennas at the Goldstone Deep Space Network facility in California that are used to communicate with the Mars rovers and every other spacecraft exploring the solar system. TV-145 was blasted with radio waves. Those waves were reflected back and picked up by the Green Bank Radio Telescope in West Virginia, as well as Puerto Rico's Arecibo Observatory, which you may remember from the movie Contact. The resulting image looked a bit like a 1,300-foot wide skull tumbling through space, just in time for Halloween. Elsewhere in the sky, the ISS returns to the pre-dawn skies for much of the country. Check spotthestation.nasa.gov for the next visible pass over your home. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
Time now for the weather roundup. This is for November 2nd, 2015. Did you guys see the ABC News open tonight? Massive tornado outbreak was their lead story. And I'm trying to figure out where exactly was there a massive tornado outbreak today. We had a few small ones in parts of South Georgia. Had a few over the weekend in South Mississippi. Had some damage in Southeast Alabama, but there was no major tornado outbreak. Dr. John, is it raining up there where you are?
No, James. In fact, we've been dealing with the high clouds just blowing off from the convection you've been talking about. That wave, well, it was a closed low at one point. Now it's an open wave traveling through the deep south, and it's going to get caught beneath this developing ridge. I'm going to see if I can share this image of the nation. Let me put this up here for you. You can see there's an amplifying shortwave now moving into the Pacific Northwest, and that's going to drive a ridge downstream across much of the nation. So beneath that ridge is the remnants of this open wave now moving through the deep south. So maybe we get a little sprinkle or some rain here on Thursday, but for the most part, we're looking at potentially 70-degree weather here this week.
Yeah, it looks like the Great Lakes will be nice and warm, parts of the upper Midwest, and at the same time, underneath the trough in the western states, looks like some of the mountains out there, John, might pick up pretty good snow in coming days.
Yeah, it's coming. The cold air is coming into the Rockies, definitely.
In fact, I do weather in Arizona on radio, and we have forecast a very good chance of snow showers for Flagstaff, Arizona, the day after tomorrow on Wednesday. So that's a sign of the times.
Yeah, 6,900 feet.
Yeah, and again, that'll be producing another big rain event for parts of the central and eastern U.S. with time. And we're getting into down here in Dixie Alley. We started our fall tornado season yesterday, so November, December, and 'tis the season. So, Kev, what's happening in Texas? Any exciting news there?
Well, we had pretty good soaking. Most of it was in central and east Texas, but here in Wichita Falls, we did 3.60 at our house and close to 3 at Shepherd Air Force Base, which is KSPS, and another chance for some rain on Thursday with a front.
Wow. So I guess the drought's kind of faded away, huh?
Yeah, we'd actually been sneaking back into that quite a bit, especially against central and east Texas. The U.S. Drought Monitor was showing some ominous stuff, but we got, as you know, a real good soaking, and much of central southeast Texas got soaking from that hybrid Patricia thing that came across Mexico and merged with that low in the Gulf.
Yep. And Tom, what's happening in El Paso?
Well, we just ended up our fourth wettest October on record. The system that brought the tornadoes to your neck of the woods over there in the southeast brought our first snows to southern New Mexico. 8,000 feet, Cloudcroft, New Mexico, just about 150 miles north of El Paso, Texas. Got their first snows. Got some in the Gila Wilderness, just up along the Arizona border. But right now, like John just showed, we're in between systems. You got the next West Coast system, well to our west. We're under high pressure, and it's great weather right now. And we're just looking to see what kind of wind the system brings to us. It looks like it'll probably pass too far north for us to get much in the way of rain or anything like that. So we're looking pretty good weather up ahead.
Awesome. And John, you've got the drought monitor up for the U.S., I see.
Yeah, if you're east of the Continental Divide, not much in terms of a worry in terms of the drought. Man, look at the West. It's just amazing, the extent of the extreme to even exceptional drought. It's absolutely astounding.
And John, your thoughts on, we're in the El Nino phase of the ENSO cycle. Your thoughts on the winter for California? There's a lot of speculation that they might see some beneficial rain. What say you?
Well, it's certainly possible with an El Nino, but if you look at the history in terms of an El Nino of this magnitude, and you couple that with the state of the climate, which is you get into a situation where you don't have much of an analog to work with. So while a typical El Nino would help out this kind of situation in Southern California, and then right across to where Kevin is, I don't think you can say that because the teleconnections are completely different for this round.
Yep. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's move on here. Aubrey is out, so we're not going to have the email segment this week. We will have a triple doodle email segment the next time she's on the show here, but let's roll Skydaver's Fog Bank, and we'll come back with our picks of the week.
Initiating startup sequence.
Hello, WeatherBrains listeners. This is Dave Phillips. You can find these links at skydaver.blogspot.com. Earth Science Picture of the Day comes in with 3 picks this week. First up, a triple rainbow. Number 2 is a lenticular cloud over the Canary Islands. Number 3 is a thunderstorm's rain shield in Guatemala. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory's SciJinx site had a great article on storm surge. And finally, spaceweather.com has a picture of a blue starter, a lightning bolt starting out of the top of a thundercloud.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening. Skydaver out.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
All right, thanks, Skydaver. And I am the lead story on the news tonight, Brian. You know what? Why do you think I'm the lead story tonight?
Because the rain ended.
We might have some fog after midnight. How times have changed.
Wow.
They used to lead with weather when you had a big storm or a flood or a snow, and now dense fog. Let's lead with weather.
Are you assembling a fog chase team?
Yes. Exactly here. So due to that situation, hang on. I'm going to do one quick little thing here. I need to stop.
I'll put in Fog
things.
Chase Team as a show title while you're doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
You're going to have a fog remote.
Fog what?
A fog remote. Fog remote.
We can't see the remote meteorologist. He's in the fog.
I'm standing here in the fog.
And the fog is heavy.
You could just do that one outside the TV station.
The fog is affecting thousands.
All right, we're back here. So, well, my pick of the week, it's earlier Dr. John showed it. It's the water.weather.gov site. I've really not looked at that thing in a while. That's fantastic to look at precipitation analysis and stuff. That's a great site. So, Nate or somebody, y'all got to pick it up because I got to walk across the hall and do some television. So, Nate, go. You take your pick of the week and run with the show.
My pick of the week is Gary Zatkowski's Twitter feed and his tweet storm that he went on earlier, taking issue with a Philly magazine editorial column, something basically calling the Weather Service incompetent, and he took issue with that, as he rightly should, and I had some other follow-up comments. Definitely, he's a great follow anyway, and every now and again he'll go on these tweet storms that are always good reading. Brian Peters, pick of the week from you, sir.
Yes. Well, one of the things we had over last weekend was Patricia, not this past weekend, but like a week ago. And I ran across a very interesting article about studying Patricia. It's a NASA group using WB-57s. Anybody know what a WB-57 is?
Sure. It's old World War II aircraft.
Absolutely.
It's a bomber.
Flying at what altitude, John?
15,000 feet?
No, 60,000 feet.
Oh, well now it is.
Fascinating article, and I found it fascinating partially, I guess, because I went through Ivan on one of the Hurricane Hunters out of Keesler Air Force Base, and of course, as everybody probably knows, they fly at 10,000 feet, roughly 700 millibars. So I found this article very interesting. It was appeared in Wired, and I'll have a link up there because it's a long title.
All right. Pick of the week, Dr. John Scala.
Sure, Nate, I'm going to go with this historic event that's occurring, as we were talking at the beginning of the show, in the Persian Gulf. And this is, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, Chapala?
Chapala.
Okay. This cyclone, tropical cyclone, going to make landfall in Yemen. And if you think about the amount of rainfall that Yemen typically gets in an annual basis, it's about 4 inches. And according to the Capital Weather Games post, which is my pick of the week, the H Wharf is coming up with 30 inches of rain. So
whoa!
Conceivably, this could produce 5 years or more worth of rainfall in Yemen.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Incredible stuff. All right. Kevin Selly, pick of the week, sir.
Something we use a lot here, mentioning drought earlier. It's called Water Data for Texas, and you can find all the reservoirs, all the lake levels continuously updated, or at least once a day, and good historical information as well.
Very cool. A lot of water and fire themed here, and we'll pick the fire theme up. Tom Bird, a pick of the week from you, sir.
Okay, let me share my screen real quick, and I'll just show it to you. It's a little light on the meteorology, but it's really good for fires. It's good for nationwide. This is all the wildfires, and it's called InciWeb. It's an incident information system, and you can pick any state you want, and I'll pick Washington. And when you do that, it'll show all the fires that they've had in Washington, those that are current, and the size, and if you pick on one, to give all the information on that, a lot of times you'll have perimeters that you can put on Google Earth, and they always have a little bit of weather there at the bottom, weather concerns, stuff like that. So for anybody that's just interested in the fires that are ongoing across the country, and you can even see historics here, it's a really good site to go to.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. Of course, the picks of the week are always on the website. You can go to weatherbrains.com shortly after we finish the live broadcast here, and those will be posted for you. So if you miss the URLs, don't worry, we'll get those for you there. Taking a look at the schedule as we look ahead, Walter Hickey, our guest next week. The following week, the 16th, we'll be talking with Carol Fowler from the Social Report, somebody that Kevin and I met at the National Weather Association annual meeting. That'll be an interesting one. Henry Neiman on the 23rd of November. After Thanksgiving, we're talking about the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. Eric Rasmussen and Kevin Laws on December 14th. That is going to be a can't-miss show talking about Vortex Southeast. And, of course, we'll finish out the year with the ever-popular and always excellent Greg Carbon, likely to talk about our high-impact weather events of the last year. It's always a must-see episode. We're looking forward to that. So,
you might mention we had a nice preview of the top 10 events at the NWA's national annual meeting in Oklahoma City.
Did. But it always a little bit of change sometimes between there. We've 2 months and change between NWA and our year-ender with Greg Carbon. So who knows? We may have a couple of new things on the list. So even if you saw the presentation at NWA, this is the show because
we had a top 9, not a top 10. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and already he's got 2 big rainfall events to choose from.
That's true.
Absolutely. So if you've got a show topic, a guest that you'd like to have on the program, you can always tell us. Email at weatherbrains.com. You can find us on Facebook or Twitter. That's also a place where you can send us emails, news articles, and other things, potential picks of the week, stuff that you want us to see, and occasional questions. We answer those as well. So let us know what you've got to say. If you like the program, hate the program, or just have a weather question, we'll be happy to field all of those.
And I might interject, that the latest issue of Skywritings is out.
Yes.
You can find it on our webpage too if you're not a subscriber, but we'd love to have you subscribe. We have 442 very smart people subscribing so far.
There's 442 people with issues, and we'd like for you to have issues as well.
And we have issues with 5 states because we have no subscribers in 5 states of the United States. Only 5. I think that's pretty good.
Which 5?
Let's see. Alaska, Delaware, Rhode Island. I'd have to look it up. That's close.
I'm looking at you, Rhode Island. Let's get with the program. Get on the stick now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to look it up, but maybe I'll have it next week.
All right. Now, this is WeatherBrains, the All About the Weather Netcast. We typically produce the show at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern Time. Whether it's daylight or standard, it doesn't matter. It's always 8:30 or 9:30. Here on Monday nights via Google Hangout. Of course, you can obtain the recorded version on weatherbrains.com, iTunes, Stitcher, your favorite podcast app, and of course, please leave us the comments. We love those there. Let us know what you think of the program. You can find us at all of our information, email addresses, social media stuff on weatherbrains.com. So feel free to get out and get in touch with us. I'm just stumbling all over myself tonight, so we're just going to wrap it up. I'm not James Spann. Good night, and God bless.
Good night. Thanks, Tom.
Hey,
Tom,
thanks for having me.
Great show.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh,
Tell Tim Bryce we said hi.
I will tell him hi, and I thank him for hooking us up because I really had fun. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for being here,
Tom.
We
enjoyed it. Thank you, sir.
Great.
Oh, good.
Take care.
Thanks. All right. Bye, y'all.
Have a good evening.
Take care, gentlemen.
Will do.
See you.